Deep within the ancient, towering walls of the castle of Andalasia, a place shrouded in both beauty and mystery, lived Queen Nerissa. The castle itself was a marvel, its spires reaching for the moon, its halls echoing with secrets and the faint whispers of ambition. But none of its secrets were as dark or as dangerous as those harbored by its queen. Queen Nerissa was a vision of regal beauty, her presence commanding every room she entered. Her eyes, sharp and calculating, missed nothing. Yet beneath her flawless exterior, there was a heart as cold as the marble floors she walked upon. Her beauty was matched only by her cruelty, and her subjects both admired and feared her in equal measure. Nerissa relished her role as queen. The power, the adoration, the control. It was everything she had ever wanted. She ruled with an iron will, making sure that every decision, every celebration, and every secret in the kingdom passed through her hands. The thought of sharing her throne, her influence, or her authority with anyone else was unthinkable. She guarded her crown jealously, clutching it as if it were the very source of her life. But there was one threat to her reign that she could not ignore: Prince Edward, her stepson. The young prince was growing into a man, and with each passing day, the pressure for him to marry and take his rightful place as king grew stronger. Nerissa watched him closely, her eyes never missing a moment of his life. She saw the way he laughed, the way he dreamed, and most of all, the way he looked at the young women of the court. Each glance, each smile, was a reminder that her time as queen could soon come to an end. The thought haunted her day and night. If Edward married, tradition dictated that he would ascend the throne as king, and Nerissa would be forced to step aside. Her power, her influence, her very identity would be stripped away in an instant. She could not bear the idea of becoming a mere figurehead, a shadow of her former self, while someone else ruled in her place. The crown felt heavier on her head with every passing day, as if it sensed the threat looming on the horizon. Nerissa was not a woman to accept defeat. She was cunning, resourceful, and utterly determined to keep her throne. She spent long nights pacing her chambers, plotting and scheming by candlelight. She studied her reflection in the mirror, searching for answers in her own eyes. And then, one night, inspiration struck. If she could not stop Edward from seeking a bride, perhaps she could control the kind of bride he would find. She would distract him, send him on a quest that would keep him far from the castle, and from any woman truly worthy of being queen. With a sly smile, Nerissa summoned Edward, and announced that it was time for him to find a bride. She sent him on a grand quest, a journey that would take him far and wide across the kingdom and beyond. She made it sound like a noble adventure, a rite of passage for a future king. But in truth, it was a carefully laid trap, designed to keep him distracted and away from the real business of ruling. Nerissa knew exactly what kind of bride Edward would be drawn to. She imagined a girl who was dreamy and innocent, someone who saw the world through rose-colored glasses, a young woman who would be dazzled by the splendor of the castle, overwhelmed by the responsibilities of royalty, and utterly unprepared for the harsh realities of court life. Someone who would be easy to manipulate, easy to control, and most importantly, easy to defeat. In her mind, Nerissa pictured a girl like Giselle, sweet, naive, and hopelessly out of her depth. Such a girl would never survive the intrigues and dangers of Andalasia, let alone rule it. Nerissa was certain that with the right bride, Edward's reign would be short-lived, and she would remain the true power behind the throne. But as she watched her plan unfold, Nerissa could not shake the feeling that fate had a way of turning even the most perfect schemes upside down. Giselle was a sweet and innocent girl. She lived in a tiny cottage with her animal friends. Giselle dreamed of finding true love. She wanted to meet a handsome prince, fall in love, and live happily ever after. She expressed her feelings through song, and her voice was so beautiful it echoed through the forest. One day, Giselle's dream seemed to come true. Prince Edward heard her singing in the forest. He was enchanted by her beauty and her voice. He knew she was the one. He asked her to marry him. Giselle was overjoyed, and she said yes without a moment's hesitation. They ran back to the castle to get married, but someone was waiting for them. Queen Nerissa was furious. She couldn't let Edward marry Giselle, so she had to act fast. Just as Giselle was about to say, "I do," Nerissa pushed her into a magical well. The well transported Giselle to a place she had never seen before, a place with no magic or talking animals, a place called New York City. Giselle was lost and confused. The city was loud, crowded, and honestly, kind of scary. She didn't know what to do or where to go, so she wandered the streets looking for help. Finally, she met a kind lawyer named Robert and his daughter Morgan. They took pity on her and let her stay with them. Meanwhile, Prince Edward was frantic. He knew Nerissa was behind Giselle's disappearance, no doubt about it. He vowed to find her and bring her back. Without a second thought, he jumped into the well after her, followed by his trusty squire, Pip the Chipmunk. They landed in New York City and began their search for Giselle. Back in Andalasia, Nerissa wasn't finished. She sent her henchman Nathaniel to New York. His mission was to make sure Giselle never returned. Nathaniel tried to get rid of Giselle. He used poisoned apples, just like in the fairy tales. But Giselle was just too smart for him. She didn't fall for his tricks. As Giselle adjusted to life in New York, she started to fall for Robert's kindness. He was different from Edward, but he was kind and caring in his own way. Morgan grew fond of Giselle too. She loved hearing Giselle's stories about Andalasia. However, Robert's girlfriend Nancy wasn't so happy. She felt jealous of the bond growing between Robert and Giselle. One evening there was a grand costume ball in Central Park. Robert took Giselle and Morgan. Edward and Pip found Giselle at the ball. They were overjoyed to be reunited, but their happiness was short-lived. Nerissa appeared at the ball, disguised in a beautiful gown. She had one last trick up her sleeve. In the heart of New York City, under the shimmering city lights, Giselle found herself caught in a web of deception spun by the wicked Nerissa. Disguised as a kindly old woman, Nerissa offered Giselle a gleaming red apple, its surface shining with an unnatural allure. Tempted by the promise of hope and comfort in a world so different from her own, Giselle hesitated for only a moment before taking a bite. The sweetness of the fruit quickly turned bitter, and a wave of darkness swept over her. Almost instantly, Giselle collapsed onto the cold pavement, her elegant ball gown pooling around her as the life seemed to drain from her body. The bustling city faded into the background as Edward, her devoted prince, rushed to her side. His heart pounded with fear and sorrow as he cradled her limp form, unable to comprehend the cruel twist of fate that had befallen them. Desperation filled Edward's eyes. He remembered the ancient magic of Andalasia. Only true love's kiss could break such a powerful curse. With trembling hands he brushed a strand of hair from Giselle's face, hoping against hope that his love would be enough to bring her back. He pressed his lips to hers, pouring all his love and longing into the kiss. But as he pulled away, Giselle remained motionless. The magic had failed. Edward's heart shattered. He realized that the love he felt was not the love that could save her. In that moment, it became clear. Giselle was no longer just a princess from the fairy tale land of Andalasia. The city had changed her. She had grown, learned, and become something more. Someone real, with hopes, fears, and dreams of her own. As the city lights flickered around her, Giselle's spirit stirred. She was no longer defined by magic or destiny, but by her own choices and the love she had found in this new world. She was a real woman now, strong and determined, ready to face whatever came next. Robert, who had watched everything unfold, suddenly understood the depth of his feelings. He realized that he truly loved Giselle, not as a fantasy, but as the remarkable woman she had become. His heart ached with the possibility of losing her forever. With hope and love guiding him, Robert leaned down and kissed Giselle gently. This time, the magic was real. The magic of true love found in the most unexpected place. Giselle's eyes fluttered open and joy filled the air as she awoke, surprised and overjoyed to see Robert's face. But their happiness was short-lived. Enraged by her failure and weakened by her own dark magic, Nerissa unleashed her fury. In a swirl of smoke and shadow, she transformed into a monstrous dragon, her scales glinting against the New York skyline. The final battle for love and freedom was about to begin. The dragon terrorized the city. Edward fought bravely, but he was no match for Nerissa's power. Just when all hope seemed lost, Giselle grabbed Edward's sword. She climbed the Woolworth building. Giselle stabbed the dragon, defeating Nerissa once and for all. Or is it? You know, every story loves to end with those famous words, happily ever after. But life, even in a world where magic and reality collide, is rarely that simple. Sometimes the end of one adventure is just the beginning of another. And in a city as big and unpredictable as New York, who's to say what happily ever after really means? With Nerissa gone, everyone thought their troubles were over. The city seemed brighter, the air lighter, and for a moment it felt like a fairy tale had truly come to life. People celebrated, couples embraced, and laughter echoed through the parks and streets, but as the dust settled it became clear that not everyone's story had wrapped up so neatly. Well, almost everyone found their happy ending. Giselle, who had once dreamed only of fairy tale castles and enchanted forests, realized that her heart now belonged to something and someone entirely different. She looked at Robert, the man who had shown her the beauty of the real world, and felt a love deeper than any spell could conjure. It wasn't the love she'd imagined as a girl, but it was real, and it was hers. So Giselle made a choice. She decided to stay in New York, embracing the chaos and charm of city life. She built a new family with Robert and Morgan, learning that happiness isn't about perfect endings, but about the little moments shared together. They laughed, they stumbled, and they grew not in a palace, but in a cozy apartment filled with love. Meanwhile, Edward, the dashing prince from Andalasia, returned to his magical kingdom. But he wasn't alone. Nancy, who had always longed for a bit of magic in her life, found her own fairy tale by his side. Together, they brought a touch of New York's spirit to Andalasia, proving that sometimes, the most unexpected journeys lead to the happiest destinations. As for Nathaniel, the once loyal servant who had spent years in the shadows, he discovered something extraordinary about himself. Away from the drama and danger, he found solace in words. He began to write, pouring his adventures, mistakes, and dreams onto the page. It turned out, he had a hidden talent for storytelling. Nathaniel's memoir, a tell-all account of his wild journey from Andalasia to New York, took the world by storm. Readers everywhere were captivated by his honesty, humor, and heart. The book became a bestseller, and Nathaniel finally stepped into the spotlight, not as a villain or a sidekick but as a hero in his own right. And so, the magic of Andalasia didn't disappear. Instead, it found a new home, weaving itself into the fabric of New York City. The line between fantasy and reality blurred, and both worlds learned to coexist. Every now and then, if you look closely, you might spot a hint of enchantment in the most ordinary places, a sparkle in the air, a song in the wind, or a story waiting to be told. And that, kids, is how I met your stepmother. Our story didn't end with a single kiss or a grand ball. It became a new beginning, one filled with love, laughter, and a little bit of magic, right here in the heart of New York City. Because sometimes, the best fairy tales are the ones we create together every single day.